A little bit of Minnie in my life, a little bit of Mickey by her side.
Star Tours announces another of our exciting action-adventure tours.
Test sequence is downloading and we're clear for dispatch.
Okay, let's move them ahead for test 1.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I'm your host, Lou Mongello, and I want to thank you for tuning in once again this week. This is show number 66 for the week of May 11th, 2008. And first things first, Happy Mother's Day to all moms and mothers-to-be. Now, on to this week's show. There's no news this week, as I produced the show early in anticipation of my Walt Disney World trip, but I do have a number of segments that I think you'll enjoy. This week, I wanted to address a question that many of you have sent me via email and voicemail, which involves staying off Disney property and renting a vacation home. Steve Trover, CEO of All-Star Vacation Homes, joins me to answer many of your frequently asked questions, as well as looks at the pros and cons of renting a vacation home, who it might be right for and who it's not, addresses some possible concerns, and talks about the process. It's a great primer on renting a vacation home, and you just might be surprised as to some of the reasons why it might be a viable option for you and your family. One of the most important aspects of what I do is that of giving back to others with the help of so many people through my Dream Team project. And of course, I'm certainly not the only one who believes in helping others, and as I've done in the past, this week I want to profile someone who is truly making magic and a very big difference in the lives of children and families that need it most. He is Bert Weiss, a radio personality at Q100 in Atlanta, Georgia, and he is the founder of Bert's Big Adventure, an all-expense-paid trip to Walt Disney World for families that have children with life-threatening illnesses. It's an inspirational story that once again demonstrates the incredible generosity and dedication of people in the community as a whole. I also welcome back Jeff Pepper to join me in exploring not just a hidden treasure and character connection, but a fun place to grab a hot dog and a Coke, ride the bleachers, and catch a few tunes. So we'll take you out to the ball game at Casey's Corner on Main Street, USA. So to all you moms out there, sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. I've always been a very big proponent of always staying at a Disney hotel whenever you visit the Walt Disney World Resort for a variety of reasons. But sometimes there are reasons why it's practical and prudent to stay off-site in a very different type of accommodation. And in fact, it may be one of the biggest ways to help you and your family save money when vacationing to Walt Disney World. And now many of you have actually emailed me and asked about staying in a vacation home when visiting Walt Disney World. That prompted me to learn more about staying in a vacation home myself, but I certainly don't have all the answers. And as I like to do on the show, I wanted to bring in somebody who could help answer some of your frequently asked questions about staying at a vacation home, some possible concerns, whether it's right for you, etc. So I wanted to welcome in Steve Trover. He is the CEO of All-Star Vacation Homes. They've been in business in the Orlando area for more than 10 years. Steve, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And Steve, I want to start off by being clear that obviously All-Star Vacation Homes is my recommended vacation home provider, and that's why I wanted you to come on. You're also a partner of the show, but as with any product or service that I recommend, I personally use you, and I've done a great deal of research and due diligence in helping make my selection, giving me really full confidence in the quality of your product and your commitment to customer service. But what I really want to do, Steve, was start off not talking about All-Star, but I want to talk about the very basics of renting a vacation home. And really, can you just tell us what is a vacation home for those that may not be familiar with that term, especially as it applies to an Orlando vacation?
Yeah, in Central Florida, there's a number of different types of vacation homes as far as sizes. And then there's also different types, such as some people will call a vacation home a timeshare rental. So it might be at one of the timeshare areas. But in Central Florida, traditionally in Central Florida, a vacation rental is an individually owned property, meaning there's one owner, not multiple. And it's in a residential or resort community in close proximity to Disney that is rented out on a short-term basis, meaning less than 30 days, and is licensed exactly like a hotel. In the state of Florida, a vacation rental is treated very much like a hotel. We're under the same guidelines and statutes of the state. A vacation home typically is either a 2 or 3 bedroom condo or anything from a 3 to a 7 bedroom private pool home. And then there's also townhomes, 3 or 4 bedroom homes which are an attached unit as opposed to a detached unit like a single family home. And there are many thousands of them in Central Florida, and there are literally hundreds of management companies to choose from. And the pricing due to that ranges from just a really amazing, really low price, under $100 a night for a single family home in some cases, all the way up to $500 or $600 a night for a really, really upscale larger home.
All right, so like I said, I'm going to start off with some very basic and very simple questions because I know for myself, when the topic of vacation home came up, I was very, very unaware of exactly what it is and what they included and what the experience might be like, say, as opposed to staying at a hotel on property or even off property. So can you tell us things about, how they're furnished and some of the amenities that all the properties might have in them?
Certainly. So the owner themselves typically is a part of designing what the property looks like. So they make decisions on what types of furnishings that we put into the property. There's a lot of furniture package companies that would place those furnishings and design the property. And they're very much like a home, but also more like a hotel in the sense that they're going to have some standardization throughout them, and they have living areas, dining areas. You have your own a full dining room. You have typically at least one, if not multiple, master bedrooms. We have homes, as an example, that have up to 5 here in Central Florida, 5 master bedrooms. You have a fully equipped kitchen that does have all of the dishes and cooking and eating utensils to make a meal with, which is a really nice feature. You have a washer and dryer, which you obviously would not get in a hotel, which is a really a nice feature. You can go home with clean laundry instead of packing up all the dirty. So, and if you don't have to pack as much, which is a nice feature. Most homes in Central Florida have a private pool. Many have a hot tub or jacuzzi as well. The pools are interesting, especially if you're from the north. They're screen enclosed, so there's an enclosure around the entire pool area, which keeps the bugs away during the summer months when the mosquitoes are heavy. So you can come back from the park and really enjoy the pools without having to deal with bugs. And the kids just absolutely love that. They love to be able to be in their own swimming pool. So that's probably one of the biggest features of a vacation home, of a single-family home. And then in condos and in townhomes, typically those are in resort communities where you would also have a resort pool similar to what you would expect at a resort hotel. And some have water slides and those types of things. But again, going back to within the unit, you have your full living area with TVs. Typically in most bedrooms of a vacation home in Central Florida, you're going to have a cable TV, a lot of times a DVD player in each bedroom as well. Many homes have computers now, so you have a computer with broadband internet access. You can find those with Wi-Fi, so if you brought your laptop. So there's just a lot of great features that you probably would not necessarily find in a hotel.
All right, now I'm going to ask you one of the most basic of questions, but just from a practical aspect. Let's say, okay, I decide that I'm going to get a vacation home or a condo, whatever it is. I schlep my family from the airport. We get off the plane. I walk in the door, and sure, it's great that I have a kitchen. I have all these things. But, again, forgive the simplicity of this. But what about things like toilet paper and paper towels and soap that obviously we take for granted when we walk into a hotel? Is that something I have to worry about stopping and getting on the way in? Or how are the condos or the houses kind of sort of pre-stocked before I get there?
Looking at it from an industry perspective, and this is almost across the board with all companies, you're at minimum going to have paper towels, starter paper towels, toilet paper. There's going to be soaps and shampoos in the bathrooms, similar to you would expect at a hotel. A lot of companies have gone, and we certainly do, provide the dishwashing detergent, some starter supplies for all of those things, so laundry detergent, etc., trash bags as well. Now, you may not have enough, and depending on which company you go with or what they provide, and that's something to ask when you make for the whole stay. And so, typically, many visitors will come in and do maybe not the first, right when they get in, but the next day go down to the grocery store and pick up some things. Many companies, including ours, will provide a service. We provide a pre-arrival grocery service. Well, we will do that for you. So you can tell us exactly what you want, and then when you come to the home, all of those things are already in the home for you, which is a really great feature.
And if you want to go out and get your own supplies, whether it be to cook or for cleaning, or you need baby food or diapers, are there places, for the most part, close by to all the properties where you can go out and get this kind of stuff?
Certainly. There's grocery stores within just a couple miles of almost any vacation home in Central Florida. So you can get there quickly. There's multiple options for that. And it's actually an inexpensive way to go, as opposed to obviously going to a restaurant all the time. Now, just because you have a kitchen doesn't mean you have to cook the whole time or anything like that. There's a couple different options. Obviously, you can do carry out or delivery to the home, but it's nicer than sitting on the hotel bed trying to eat a pizza. You've got a full dining room to relax at, or watch TV in the living area and spread out, so it's not as cramped. So it does allow you to save money that way. One thing that's really great that we've started to do is bring in chefs, though, and it sounds expensive, but it actually can be quite reasonable to have a chef come in and cook a meal for your whole family, which is obviously a really fun thing to do maybe once or twice during your stay. And then mom doesn't have to, really work at it if she's not a big cook and have to do all that, but you get to have that home cooked style meal there at the home, and it's really a relaxing way to do that, as opposed to going to a crowded restaurant with the kids. So.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, especially thinking if you're coming down with 10, 12, 14, 16 people in the family, you don't feel like cooking. I never even thought about having somebody come and do that for you.
Yeah, we have quite a few great chefs, and again, surprisingly reasonable. So.
All right. Again, some of the more practical things, and I'm going from my perspective and based on some of the emails that I'm sort of answering while asking these questions, are things like, what about cleaning? Obviously this is not a hotel, so is there a cleaning service before I get there, during my stay, after I leave? How does that work?
Yes, it's definitely clean prior to your arrival. So you'll show up, and we'll, the towels will be in place. The beds are perfectly made, similar to what you would expect at a hotel. What you won't find typically is that it's daily maid service. So, there's typically a vacuum and cleaning supplies if you want to do it yourself. However, most companies, definitely ours, will do additional cleaning services for an additional charge if you require it. Few people do. They really don't use that service that often. Most just decide that, to kind of keep it tidy. We do leave additional sheets and towels and whatnot in the property for your stay, and of course you do have your washer and dryer. So no, that is one of the biggest differences between a vacation home and a hotel. But again, you do have that option if you choose to have us come in each day and clean up. So.
All right. Yeah, before we get to some of the advantages, and I think there are many that I've come to learn, of staying in a vacation home, I want to talk about some of the possible concerns that people have, because I know for me personally, when I thought about a vacation home, these are the things that popped into my mind right away. And one of the first things, especially because I have young kids, is what about safety and what about security? Now I'm not outside that Disney comfort zone. Right. Are the communities all gated? Are they secure?
Certainly. We have different types of communities in Central Florida. Some are just an open community. They're in nice neighborhoods. It's not like it's in a bad area at all, but there may not be a form of security in that area. Then there are gated communities, which gives a little bit more privacy and security, obviously not having everybody come through. And then there are those with communities with guards. So there'll actually be a guard at the front, like you'd expect at a Disney hotel when you check in there. You have to go through the gates. So there is that security element as well. Many of the homes have gone to key-coded entryway, so there's not a hard key, which is a nice feature, a security feature. But really, it's a very, they're in nice areas of west of Disney, typically right out in the 192 corridor, and very secure, not really a security issue in the area.
Well, you actually bring me to my next question, which is, location. I think for a lot of people, where these are in proximity to Walt Disney World might be a concern, because now I'm not staying on Disney property. Obviously, renting a car is going to play into that. How close are the properties to Walt Disney World, and talk about the transportation issue?
Well, again, from a general perspective in Central Florida, not talking about All-Star just yet, there are properties as far out as 20 miles. Now, the bulk of vacation homes are within probably about a 10-mile radius of Disney, heavy in the southern corridor, or Osceola County or Kissimmee area, if you will. And yet there are homes that are very, very near. And the homes that we manage, as an example, are all within 5 miles of Disney and close to the Animal Kingdom. I like to say that all of our homes are actually closer to the Animal Kingdom than the Animal Kingdom is to the Magic Kingdom, as an example. So obviously Walt Disney World proper is a very large area geographically, and so you can be very, very close to parts of the theme park there. We do have different ways to come into Disney now. From the west side, now there's a new entrance in there. You can come in through the Sherbeth Road entry near Animal Kingdom Lodge, and that gets you there very, very quickly. So it doesn't take long to get from a vacation home onto Disney property at all. Transportation, obviously, that's probably one of the biggest differences between staying on property and not, is that you have to have a rental car typically. You could use taxis and that sort of thing. There's not really a great option from a public transport perspective, buses, so you definitely would want to rent a car. And what it does, for me, I know I love Disney. I love to be on Disney property, but there's so many things to do in Central Florida, so it gives you the ability to explore some of the other things that there are outside of Disney when you have a rental car. So, it's again, like we're saying, it's not for everybody, and of course, many of your listeners are always going to be staying on Disney property. But when you have a group or a family, and you want to spread out a little bit, it's a great option to stay on a vacation home.
Right, and just to speak to the transportation again, I'm somebody that, well, I think Disney transportation is wonderful and for the most part very efficient. I like renting a car, especially when I go with my family, because now I don't have to worry about car seats and strollers and things I need to keep in there and whatnot. But you also don't have to worry about waiting for a bus at the end of the night, waiting for the bus to your resort, and you don't have to worry about when you get back to if you do have a rent-a-car, for example, you don't have to worry about how far away you're going to park from your room. You're now parking right in front of or inside your garage at your own private home, which I think is actually an advantage. So I think there's a lot of advantages to having a car, especially if you are staying at a home or one of these off-site properties. But absolutely. You said you made reference to the fact that obviously these homes are not for everybody. Staying at a vacation home is not for every person or type of family that comes down to Walt Disney World. Who do you think really they're for, and who's going to get the most use out of them, and who maybe is not the person that should be looking at a vacation home?
Obviously somebody that just desires to be completely encompassed by Disney at all times. That may not enjoy it. But I have not found that to be the case. I've had so many people that have come that are just really into Disney, like I'm sure most of the listeners would be, and experienced a vacation home, and were surprised at how much they enjoyed it, and were able to still experience Disney in a great way without staying on property. So, but there are those that just absolutely want to be there, and I understand that. I do. So I think that there are certain, but I think it's still worth trying at some point, especially if you come on a regular basis. And then, vacation homes, maybe not for if a couple was coming. Maybe, because of the size, you don't need all the space, or you don't desire that. So a hotel room suffices, and that may be a better way to go. Although, again, having the kitchen and the laundry facility, and more importantly, the pool and the jacuzzi and some of the other features that are there, it's something to consider, even if you only have a small group. So it does work a lot better when you have a family, or if it's multiple men coming down to play golf and at Disney and that sort of thing, or girlfriend getaways. It works well for that as well. So one of the nice features of some of the larger homes is they have multiple master bedrooms. So for instance, four women might rent a 4-bedroom home, and they all get their own bedroom, and that's a very inexpensive way to come and visit, and you get all of the luxuries of the vacation home. So I think there are some folks that probably it just wouldn't work out for, but it definitely is great for anybody with a family, especially if you have 4 or more in your party.
Yeah, and from a personal perspective, that's what I thought of. My father took my entire family to Walt Disney World a number of years ago, and the logistics of trying to get rooms that were near each other, or connecting rooms, and this kid wanted to go play with this cousin that was running down the hall, to be able to have a big house of our own where there's a family room where the kids can play, or our own private pool, or separate bedrooms wherever you're not on top of each other, really would have been a benefit. So I think for maybe the large families or multiple families like that, those would be the people that really might benefit from something like this, especially for people who want to maybe not be at the parks all day, every day, and want to spend some time just relaxing and enjoying just being on vacation and not going commando style.
I'm hesitant to say this on this program, but we have heard many times where literally the kids will be at the park, and towards the end of the day, and they'll be begging mom to take them back to the pool at the house. So, I love Disney too, but sometimes, when the kids have been encompassed by Disney for a long period of time, they just want to go hang out in their own pool, and that's a really great feature. So, something to consider. The other, the groups, and we talked about larger families, a lot of times multiple generations will come. So, grandma and grandpa, the kids, and then the grandchildren all coming together and from different states. And when you do that in a vacation home, it just gives you the ability to come together as a family and really enjoy that time together. When you're staying in a hotel, even though all of the hotels on Disney property are fantastic, it's difficult to then gather together in a large group. So I think with large groups especially, it just really makes sense to do a vacation home.
And listen, having young kids and having been to Walt Disney World and Orlando in the middle of August, sometimes you need to go back and spend some time at the pool. And it would be nice to be able to sit maybe in the living room while the kids are in the pool, and you can watch and don't have to worry about actually sitting by the pool. But obviously one of the big factors and one of the real reasons to look into a vacation homes and something to play in decision is cost. And I know that there's a wide variety of rentals and types of homes. Can you talk a little bit about the cost factor and how that plays in, and maybe some comparisons to, we'll look at some comparisons to what we're looking at maybe staying on property?
Sure. You can rent condos. I know in this area for, probably as little as $70 a night, as an example. Single-family homes for a little over $100 a night with a pool. We're All-Star, if you will, is a little higher than that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's definitely, if you want to go economy, there's plenty of inventory in Central Florida of vacation homes where you can rent a home for the price of a moderate resort or even one of the entry-level resorts in some cases. So it's definitely a cost-effective way to go. The rental car that you have to get can be offset by even the savings over if you had to get, say, 2 hotel rooms for your family, which obviously you do if you have a group size of 5 or more. So it's definitely a cost. I think hands down you win if you're just talking about price. Value is there as well in having all of those amenities of the pool and the kitchen and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of cost savings you get through the kitchen if you utilize it, and as opposed to always going out and eating out or room service for that matter. So definitely cost plays into it.
Well, I just quickly, I went on your website, and we'll talk specifically about your properties and costs, because I said, okay, if I'm going down with my kids and I want a little bit extra room, I looked, and you can get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo with 1 master, and this is for this time of year, for around $129 per night. Mm-hmm. It's comparable in space, from what I've experienced, to really like a 2-bedroom villa at a DVC resort, with the 2 bedrooms, with the 2 bathrooms, with all the extra living space, which obviously would be much, much greater than that. But when you start talking about larger groups, when you're talking about, multiple families with 10 people, now, you have to look into some of the larger homes that you have, because you've got 7-bedroom homes that even sleep up to 16. Can you talk about how the cost plays into, a factor when we start looking at much, much larger groups?
Yeah, we actually have 7-bedroom homes starting at around $369 a night, but a 7-bedroom home will sleep 16 people. So if you break that down, you would need a minimum of 4 hotel rooms to be able to do that. So again, it becomes very cost effective to get. And can you imagine, 4 people in each hotel room, and that'd be pretty crowded. So probably in most cases for a group that size would need even more than that. And so it gets extremely expensive to do that on property. And with the homes, you have, again, that living area to congregate when you have groups. So we have many homes, 5-bedroom and larger. All-Star has around 90 properties that are 5, 6, or 7-bedroom. We do have 27-bedroom homes available. So for the bigger groups, it really does make a lot of sense. Going back to the condos, yes, they do start at $129. That includes a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath to your point. And then you have single-family homes that start around $219. What I will tell you with our single-family homes, that $369 for the 7-bedroom starting and the $219, that does include a free rental car from Enterprise if you do a week stay. So that kind of takes the cost of the rental car out of the equation.
Okay, I didn't even realize that. So you're right. So there's an additional cost savings is there. So now you can kind of, like I said, eliminate that. But let's talk about the process itself, because what I think people need to do is actually, if they're looking into it, go through the process of looking at a home. And say, for example, if they go to the All-Star site, they'll see a list of all the condos and all the homes with actual photos. And now my question, I think a question other people might have is what I'm seeing on the website what I'm getting? Because I know for me, and I'll tell you, I've visited some of the condos, I've visited some of the homes, and I was very, very impressed, honestly, at what I saw, because I'm coming from Jersey, where when we think of renting a vacation home, that to me was like the small, musty bungalow on the Jersey Shore with the dirty carpets and grandma's furniture. And I was very surprised when I stepped onto the property myself. When people are looking at the websites, is it, what you see is what you get?
Absolutely. So when you come to the All-Star Vacation Homes website, you would put in the dates that you're considering coming, and it'll pull back a list of properties to choose from. Those are all available for those dates. you might select, I want a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom home or whatever your size is needed. And so you can pare that down, and we have the ability to compare properties side by side, which is a really nice feature on the site. Once you get to the actual property page where the individual property is listed, you'll see as many as 30 plus pictures of that property. So not only do we show an individual picture or a few pictures, we show every detail of that property, a floor plan that shows the bedding and where that, which each bedroom, what size bed is in each bedroom, which is great for planning purposes. The whole layout of the property. We also do a virtual tour, which allows you to kind of look in each room and do a 360-degree view of that room. We have all of the information on the amenities within the property, and it's very, very detailed down to every aspect of TVs and all of the electronics, and you can really get an idea of the decor that's in there. We have a professional interior designer firm that does all of our homes. Although they do work with the owner to kind of help decide what they want their home to look like, they're very, very upscale and professional and clean and modern. It's not that musty old Jersey by the shore property that you described. It's a very, very upscale environment and very comparable to a nice resort hotel room, except you have multiple rooms connected to living space and whatnot. So, and then again, I always go to the pool. So, what we found is when families check in, everybody just goes right through the house and goes and checks out the private pool. So.
Two quick things that I didn't see in the list of amenities, and there's a lot. You can choose if you want a game room, if you want a home theater, if you want a computer, Xbox, whatever. Two questions I had, Steve, was what about if you want like a non-smoking house, and what about accessibility for people with disabilities or mobility issues?
Great question. So we don't have any homes that allow for smoking, so they're all non-smoking. Of course, you can smoke out by the pool, so for smokers, you definitely have that ability. And then on the accessibility question, we only have a handful of homes, but we have some amazing homes. If someone does need has some accessibility requirements that are fully accessible to the point where they have the chairlift to go upstairs, roll-in showers, even a lift that takes you down into the pool, so really amazing accommodations for somebody who needs that type of accessibility. And we have testimonials that are just amazing from folks that had never been able to enjoy an accommodation like that before. So we can, and those are rare and have to be booked in advance, but we do have a few properties like that. So.
All right. Now I have to ask you the question. Okay, I've decided to go stay at a home. I get my key. I walk in, and now I've got a problem, or there's a problem with my reservation, or there's a problem during my stay. I can't go downstairs to the front desk and address it with somebody. What happens at that point? What happens to the problem during the stay or before the stay?
Well, typically, you would call us, and similar to a front desk, because we operate, again, very much like a nice hotel in that regard, we would answer the call and deal with whatever that issue would be. And so we have a full guest services team, a full property care or engineering maintenance team that's available, and we get there in minutes like you'd expect, again, at a nice hotel to take care of any issues that would arise, whether it be something to do with the reservation itself or an issue with the property. And we are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our office hours we're open till midnight each night, but if something happened beyond that, we are, again, available to take care of any issue that might arise.
And let's talk about All-Star specifically. How big is the staff? I mean, is it the one guy that's running around from hundreds of properties to one another, or do you have a large staff?
Yes, we do. We have over 40 people on staff, not including cleaners, that are there to maintain and service the guests throughout the stay. We have a full guest services team who keeps in contact with the guests for any needs that arise. And then, again, the maintenance crew is always out in the field. one of the differences with All-Star is all the properties are located within just a couple of miles of our offices, and so we're not spread out over a large geographic area, and we can get to the properties very quickly. If you did not want to call us and you would prefer to come down to the front desk, you can come to our offices, which again are in close proximity to discuss any issues that might arise as well. Some people prefer to do it face-to-face, and we are there for you in that regard as well. So we have a large staff. We're very customer service oriented. We want to make sure you have a great stay, and we're there for any issues that would arise.
Well, the one nice thing that I saw when I came to your offices was there were a lot of Trovers running around. So this kind of is a family-run business, which I like as well.
Yeah, my entire immediate family, my brother, 2 sisters, and mother and father, we all work here. And then we have a lot of non-family members, but we do operate very much like one big family. So I think that's good when we're talking about taking care of families on vacation. So.
Exactly. All right. Now, speaking of families, I'm bringing my wife and kids now, and what if something goes really, quote-unquote, wrong? You know, my kids decide that they're going to start coloring on the walls, and the Giants lose a big game, and my wife decides to accidentally drop one of the TVs into the pool. What happens in those kind of situations if something accidentally breaks or the Xbox gets some soda spilled on it?
Certainly. So we have a property protection fee that we do charge on each reservation. And it covers up to $1,500 in incidental damages. So if the kids did break a TV or something like that, there's literally no cost whatsoever. So we do take the credit card at the time of check-in if there was something that was full negligence or something like that. But if it's just an accident, you let us know about it. It's taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. So it's a really nice peace of mind feature, if you will, not to have to worry about it. Because many of these homes have furniture packages and decor that exceed $100,000 just for the furnishings and interior design. So, some parents are specifically worried about that, and yet with this property protection fee, you don't have to worry about that as much. So.
And what kind of fee are we looking about? Is it a daily fee? Is it a one-time fee?
It's a one-time fee. It's $60, no matter how long your reservation is, and that covers up to $1,500. And so we don't take a security deposit. A lot of people do not like to pay a security deposit. We don't require that. We just have the fee. So.
Okay. And that's one of the things, obviously, Steve, that appealed to me was how you deal with some of these issues. And I have to be honest with you, I know people that have stayed at many of your homes. Some people have commented very, very highly, not only on the quality of the homes and the process, but if a minor issue did arise, how it was handled. And many people have emailed me about how they were impressed by your commitment to service and how you fix things. And because of the way you did things, they even recommended All-Star even more. But I just kind of want to summarize, maybe the pros versus cons, and you can feel to jump in and add anything if I miss it. I think some of the pros are obviously the space, the amenities like the pool, the kitchen. It's great for large families or people who are staying for an extended period of time. I think clearly it's economical between the cost of multiple rooms versus getting a vacation home. The ability to save money on food. You can stay at home and cook for breakfast, maybe come back for lunch or cook for dinner. They're safe. They're secure. They're great for people that maybe don't want to be in the parks all day and night. Listen, if you have kids and teenagers, the multiple bathrooms pays for itself, I think. And I think the privacy is a big issue as well. You don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about pool hours or sharing the pools or how much interior space you might have with 4 rooms at a value resort versus having the 4 master bedrooms at one of the homes. Certainly there's certain things to keep in mind. Obviously, you have to rent a car, with some of the specials All-Star has that may not play into account. I think you should rent a car anyway, so maybe that's not as much of a factor. One question, are there any minimum night stays? Like, can you stay only one night, or do you have to stay a certain amount of nights?
That is definitely a difference. So typically, vacation home companies require 4 nights, which we do. We will take a 3-night stay on a last-minute stay. if you're booking for the next couple of weeks and it's open, we definitely will be able to accommodate that. So no, you typically, and honestly, if you were coming for 1 or 2 days, it probably wouldn't be logical to rent a vacation home. You'd probably just use the hotel room and go that route. So it definitely is for the, not necessarily long stays, but 4 nights or more is what I would recommend in a vacation home stay.
And the one other question that somebody asked me that I have to ask you is that I think might be a legitimate fear for people, because I think that's where it is. I think sometimes the fear of going off property and doing something that they've never done before is, when I walk in the door or when I come to check in, am I going to get locked into some 90-minute timeshare presentation, or am I going to be pressured to buy the home that I'm staying in?
Absolutely not. We are completely and 100% against anything like that. We do sell homes. We have a real estate company. These are individually owned properties, but you can't scare somebody into buying a $500,000 or more vacation home. So if you're interested, you can come down and talk to us, but we never approach you about that whatsoever. We don't interrupt your vacation, and we certainly don't require you to come down and listen to any presentation whatsoever. These are very much like a hotel in that regard. It's accommodations that we are providing for you and servicing for you. You are not going to get attacked or presented anything in that regard. So.
Yeah, like I said, it's a question that I've received via email a number of times, and I wanted to ask. So
certainly, it's definitely a misconception. I think a lot of people think it is. It would be like a timeshare scenario, but it is not in any way.
And clearly, look, talking about this for 30, 35 minutes or so is not going to answer every possible question that every family has, because they have different concerns or thoughts or maybe needs for a vacation home. What I would suggest they do is, obviously, you have to do your research. You can go to allstarvacationhomes.com. There's a lot of information there. There is a frequently asked questions page. I'm sure, Steve, they can also call if they have any questions, or if they're looking at some of the properties, some issues might come up, or questions they have.
Yeah, we have a great reservation staff that are not only familiar with all of the differences of, staying in a vacation home and our company, but they're very familiar with the homes. We regularly tour the homes with the reservations agents. They actually stay in them on occasion themselves and experience the homes. So they can really help you through the process of finding the perfect property for you to stay in. So for your family, and they will spend the time with you. They're not on timers. We're not trying to make the reservation and get them off the phone. We definitely want to help you make sure you make the right decision. The website has a lot of detail there about each property again. We also have live chat on the website, so if you're on the site and you're checking something out, you can click on the live chat button and talk to one of the reservations agents, chat with them while you're looking at the property. So we definitely are there to help you through the process from start to finish. Absolutely.
So if you have additional questions, you can go to allstarvacationhomes.com. Steve Strover, CEO of All-Star, I want to thank you for coming on and taking some time to hopefully answer a lot of the maybe basic questions that people had about the homes and the process and maybe some of its pros and cons.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
One of the greatest blessings that I've been able to receive from the Disney projects I've been involved in is really being able to give back to the community. And from the very beginning, I always wanted to help those that really do need a bit of that Disney magic that we talk about all the time. And my work in creating and raising money through the Dream Team Project is very personal to me, because it stemmed from my father's personal struggle with cancer and the children that I saw for many, many months up at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. But I'm certainly not the only one who takes the time and energy and resources to help others. And of course, I'm very lucky to have a wonderful team around me to help with the Dream Team Project. But like I've done in the past on the show, I want to help bring your attention to someone else who clearly gets it, as we say, and does amazing work to really make magic and dreams come true for children and families who need that magic the most. And he is Bert Weiss. He's a radio personality at Q100 in Atlanta, and he's the founder of Bert's Big Adventure. That's an all-expense-paid yearly trip that the Bert Show takes to Walt Disney World accompanying families that have children with chronic and terminal illnesses. And it's my pleasure to welcome Bert Weiss to the WDW radio show.
Hey, Lou, thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
Bert, thanks so much for coming on, because what you do and what your organization does is really, really inspiring. So why don't you start off by telling us what inspired you to come up with the idea for Bert's Big Adventure?
Well, the seed of the idea, taking kids to Disney World isn't a unique idea. I used to work on a radio station in Dallas on a morning show, and the host was Kid Craddock. And he has taken this trip now for years, maybe 12 years. And it started out very, very small for him and kind of grew into this juggernaut. And I worked on his show for 2 years on the support staff. And while I was on that trip, I really noticed how the effect that the trip had on these kids while they were at Disney World. And I thought to myself, if I could ever host my own radio show, this is the first thing I'm going to bring into my city. And I got hired in Atlanta probably 5 years after that first trip to Disney on his trip. And one of the first things I did when I got here was I started Bert's Big Adventure.
And what year was that?
That was 5 years ago.
Wow. All right, so tell us, you have the idea. Tell us how you really got started with creating the organization and what that first year of taking these children and their families down was like.
Well, the planning for it was really tough, because starting a nonprofit here in Georgia, the joke, which is not a joke at all, it's actually very real, is that it is harder to start a nonprofit in Georgia than it would be to open up a strip club. And it's true, because they really want to be sure that if you're raising money for a cause, that the money is going to that cause. So the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta really make you jump through a lot of hoops to get it started. And this was my passion, and it was a passion of my wife's also. So she really started cutting through the red tape, and it took months and months and months to finally get Bert's Big Adventure started, to a point, actually, where my wife broke down in front of the nonprofit council in Atlanta when it looked like we weren't going to get issued our license. And they succumbed to her tears, and we ended up getting the license for Bert's Big Adventure, and that's how it all started. And that first year, I'll tell you what, I have really been lucky. We have had an amazing support staff right from the start. So even after the first year, things went so well that I started to think, how are we going to even improve on this in the second year? But somehow, some way, we add new wrinkles to it each and every year, and it's the kids and it's the families that make it special every single year for us.
I can imagine. And tell us about that first year, that first trip. How many kids went with you, and really, how you went through that selection process maybe the first time?
Well, I'm smart enough to not put the selection process in my own hands, because then we'd have 17 planes of kids, because I wouldn't be able to turn anybody down. So I put it in the hands of a medical staff, and they basically report back to me and they say, look, Bert, these are the kids that have the most immediate need. And on that first trip, I think they also said, look, this is our first trip. Let's sort of take it easy this year before we get into more extreme cases in the second year. So the first year was really sort of easy, but there's something very special about that first year, because everything is a new experience. Like, we're experiencing the park with the kids for the very first time, and there really weren't any problems or any pitfalls in that first year. We've improved on it since then, and now it's kind of like this machine moving through the park. But even now, the experience of going through Disney for the very first time, or I should say watching the children see Disney for the very first time, is just as special as it was on my first Bert's Big Adventure trip.
I can imagine, and we'll talk about maybe some of those memories and experiences. But tell us a little bit about what the actual trip is like, because this isn't just putting a family on a plane and sending them down there. You're very much involved from beginning to end.
Yeah, we really want to get our hands very dirty in this organization. It's very personal for me, and my staff has embraced it also. So it's very personal for all of us. And you got to kind of keep in mind also the qualifications of this trip is the kids have to be between the ages of 5 and 12, and they have to have a financial need. And this has to be their first time down to Disney. So the trip to Disney itself is the most magical part, but you have to also keep in mind that these families wouldn't be able to afford going down to Disney. A lot of these families have never been outside of Atlanta. A lot of these families have never stayed in a hotel. They have never been on an airplane. So everything that we do is really a first experience for them. So it is top-notch, and it is first class, and it is all a first experience for them all through the weekend. We start with a broadcast on Thursday. where we introduce all of the family members to our audience. We have a hotel here that puts the families up the day before the trip even, so they don't have to make the long trip into Atlanta from their homes. Then we get on an airplane, an ASA plane now, and we go to Disney. We've got Mears buses waiting for us, and then from there on, it's first class all the way. We stay in the nicest hotels. We pay extra for the nicest meals. We don't skimp at all, and that's why we're always sort of begging for money, because we want this to be an entire experience for the family. We don't want to shortchange them in any way, shape, or form. So we do VIP the entire way.
Yeah, and I'm going to direct people at the end of the segment over to your site, which is bertsbigadventure.org, and to take a look at the video that you have on there, because it really gives a good idea of just what the experience is like. But you did something special that I took note of for one mother and her daughter that went above and beyond just the trip to Disney World. Tell us a little about what you did with that specially modified vehicle.
Yeah, this was pretty cool. We had a girl named Alicia Thigpen on the trip a couple of years ago. We've actually been lucky enough to do this twice. In Alicia's case, she lost her arms and her legs to meningitis. Her mom brought her into the hospital on a Friday. She wasn't feeling good. And at that point, she had her arms and had her legs, got into the hospital, and this meningitis spread so quickly that by the time that she got out of the hospital, she had no arms and no legs. And it has always been a struggle for the family, and they have never had a handicapped accessible vehicle. So her mom was literally picking her up and putting her into like the back of a Camaro. So I got together with Team Nissan here in Atlanta, and we surprised her with a brand new van, handicap accessible, and the mom has never had to lift up Alicia since then.
That is amazing. And, you know, the outpouring of support, you know, we talked a little bit about this offline, the outpouring of support that you get, not just from some of the bigger corporate sponsors, but I'm just sure the community at large must be just overwhelming.
Yeah, it really varies. I mean, I'll have kids come up to the radio station that are 7 years old, and they'll give me 35 cents because that's all they have in their piggy bank, which is fine, you know. And then I've got others that will bring by $20, and we have corporations that will give us up to 15, 20,000, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people donating all in between that range as well. And we haven't had to really pay for anything on this trip at all. When my wife and I started the organization years ago, we probably sunk $5,000 or $6,000 into it just to start it out. And since then, everything has been sponsored through either corporate sponsorships or individual sponsorships, and we haven't had to pay for anything. And like I told you before, we don't skimp on anything. We do it all first class. You know, we could stay in hotels that are cheaper. We could probably do fast food meals, but as I keep trying to stress, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and a lot of these families will never get to go on a trip again. Forget about Disney World. They'll never get to go on a plane. They'll never stay in a hotel. So we want to make sure that the family gets to do this thing completely VIP and completely have a unique experience.
And that's, you know, like I said, the blessing of the community, because when you tell people that you're doing something for kids that really need it and you bring Disney into the mix, the outpouring of time and support, whether it be financial or otherwise, from the community at large, is just, and I obviously see it on a much smaller level than you do, but it kind of just runs through in the exact same way.
Well, there's just this connection, I think, with Disney World. You know, like, Disney World is part of the American fiber now. If you're lucky enough to afford to go to Disney, then you do it. It's just part of your childhood. So I think when there are listeners or people that are thinking about donating to an organization, once you put the tie into Disney, there's just a warm place in everybody's heart for that park and that experience. So it makes it very easy to generate monies to bring children down there.
Absolutely. And I'm sure for the families, too, and the kids, it's not necessarily about the trip itself or the material prizes, but really being able to spend that time away from the hospitals and away from the doctors with their family and surrounded by people, not just at Disney, but like your organization, whose mission really is to make them forget and make them feel really special.
That's a great point, Lou. That's really our mission statement right there. It's just to get them away from protocols, get them away from doctors for a couple of days. Because what you don't realize, if you don't have a child that has a chronic or a terminal illness, is that there's no such thing as routine in these families' lives. There's no such thing as dropping the kid off at 9 o'clock and picking them up at 4 and then you going to work. There are phone calls, spontaneous phone calls from a school sometimes. If you have a routine plan for Tuesday, sometimes it's all jacked up because the child wakes up and they're just not feeling good, and before you know it, you're in the hospital for 4 straight days. And that takes its toll not only on the Bert's Big Adventure child, but obviously the mom, the dad, and you've got the siblings to take into account for also. So, as you say, this is a weekend of escape, and for them to be able to escape to Disney World and forget about all of that stuff, and in addition, be able to bond with kids that are sort of in the same situation that they are, it makes it a completely magical experience for the entire weekend.
And for you and your staff, who I assume you have a wonderful team that works with you, it's got to be so rewarding to actually be there and be part of the experience and share that with them.
Yeah, there's probably 2 parts to that. The first part is absolutely hanging out with them in the park and going to dinner with them and really getting to know them and really sort of feeling bonded to them during these 4 days. But there's another special part of it also that I really take a lot of pride in, and that's that the families feel so close to each other after the trip that they're staying in touch with each other. And so now the trip is not just about Disney World, but now we're bringing Disney World back to Atlanta. And to see these families lean on each other has really just been a completely different part of this trip that I hadn't anticipated in the very beginning.
And I'm sure you must take some incredible memories and incredible feelings back with you. But out of all the families that you've met and out of all the stories, is there maybe one that really sort of stands out as part of the Bert's Big Adventure experience, or one that really sort of means the most to you?
Well, there are so many. I mean, that's like asking who your favorite child is, right? And there are a lot that stand out. But this recent trip, we had one family, and it's kind of it's a heartbreaking story. But Chakota Martinez was on our trip this year, and this is just the most vibrant kid that you've ever met in your life. And he is in a wheelchair, but he hasn't always been. He was fine all growing up until about 8 years old, and then he started to have some back pain. And he woke up on a Saturday morning and said, "Dad, I'm really not feeling very good." So they take him to the hospital, and they find out he has like a transverse myelitis. And I'm not exactly sure of all the doctor terms with it, but I do know this, is that he lost his legs within a weekend. They were gone. And this was a kid that was playing on a playground. He was playing football and baseball and just lost his legs. So now he's in a wheelchair. They lost a child 6 months earlier in the hospital also to pneumonia. And the mom just found out a couple of months ago that she had ovarian cancer. So when I say to you that we're trying to help the entire family try to escape, in this case, this is a classic example because nobody needed this trip more than this family. They really just needed to get out of Atlanta. So I was watching his mom all weekend, and she's in real bad shape. I mean, this ovarian cancer has spread through her lungs and into her brain. And I just happened to have one scene that's kind of burned into my mind from this year's trip. And we were staying at the boardwalk, and my hotel room overlooked the actual boardwalk. And I saw her out there with Chakota and her dad. And at this particular moment, Chakota turned around in his wheelchair, and he was kind of like wheeling down the boardwalk. And I could see the pain in his mother's face because this ovarian cancer has spread through her body. She was wincing, she was bent over, and the last thing in the world she wanted to do probably was walk through the park. But I'll tell you what, as soon as that kid turned around, Chakota turned around and started wheeling his way back to his mom, she straightened right up, and she acted like nothing was bothering her at all. And that's the kind of bonding that you see at this trip, and that is just a perfect example of the joy that we're trying to, even if it's temporary, provide for these families.
Absolutely. And, you know, as Bert's Big Adventure obviously continues to grow over the past number of years, what's next, or what do you see, down the road for the project and the adventure?
Well, we're really at a crossroads right now. I do get pressure time to time from sponsors that want me to make it bigger. I mean, we've got one plane now from ASA, and we could take about 70 people in it. And they've offered bigger planes, and they've offered more money. But I'm at a crossroads because, to me, the trip is about intimacy. It's about getting to know all of the kids that are on the trip, and it's about all the kids sort of getting to know each other and the families knowing each other also. So the one thing I do know is that I don't want to make the trip any bigger. So we're looking for ways to make it even more intimate and keep the families bonded. So outside of Disney, what we're planning on doing now is we're doing a lot of different reunions. Like we're going to take all the Bert's Big Adventure families and bring them down to the Georgia Aquarium for a day. Or we'll take them to a Braves game, just to be able to keep them connected in this very tight now Bert's Big Adventure community. So there'll be a series of like 3 or 4 different smaller Bert's Big Adventures throughout the year, with our epicenter kind of being Disney World.
Excellent. Well, if I have any listeners in the Atlanta area that might be interested or know somebody, how would they go about nominating a child for consideration to be a part of the adventure? Or if any of my listeners want to help donate to Bert's Big Adventure, how do they go about doing that?
Well, I would say go to our website, and there's one of 2 ways you can do that. You can either go to our radio station website, and that's allthehitsq100.com, or you can go directly to bertsbigadventure.org.
Excellent. Bert, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and congratulations to you and your staff for all the amazing work that you guys do. We talk about dreams coming true and making wishes and making magic, and that's exactly what you do, and I really applaud and admire you and your wife and everybody that works with you.
Thank you very much, Lou, man, and thank you so much for the time. Talk to you later.
We'll go on. We'll go on, growing closer through the years, moving on through the good times and the tears, ever on another 1,000 circles round the sun. If 2 can be as one, we'll go on.
Oh, what a lark to ride out to the park, and just to see Casey. They travel for miles and they stand in the aisles, and just to see Casey. The ladies don't understand baseball a bit. They don't know a strike from a foul or a hit. But when they see Casey, that game has got it. They see the pride of them all.
The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score was 4-2, with but 1 inning left to play.
At the end of Main Street, USA, sits not just one of the finest dining establishments in all of Walt Disney World, that is, if you're looking for hot dogs, but the repository of a hidden treasure trove of details and a great character connection. So to share a couple of hot dogs at the ballpark that is Casey's Corner is, of course, Jeff Pepper. Jeff, welcome back.
Thanks, Lou. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Jeff, we always talk about everything in Walt Disney World having a store behind it, and Casey's is certainly no exception, as it is not just a quick-service restaurant, but has a place that has a history that's attached to Main Street, its own history in the park, and a history that's also in relation to its namesake. So I thought we'd start off maybe by talking a little bit about the restaurant itself and its place in Walt Disney World history. It did open on October 1st, 1971, with the rest of the park. Back then it was known as the Refreshment Corner. And then during a refurb in 1995, the name changed, along with many of the things on that side of Main Street, USA, to Casey's Corner. And that's sort of when the theming also kind of changed just a little bit. Coca-Cola started sponsorship around May of 95, about that same time. Since then, one thing that has not changed is what it served there, which is traditional American ballpark fare, and that sort of ties into the story and the theming as well. I think, Jeff, even at one time you were able to get Cracker Jacks there. I don't know if you still can or not.
Yeah, and the theming also kind of related to tying into, wasn't it not at the same time that they redid the House of Magic into the sports theme shop on Main Street, and because they're interconnected by their interiors, I thought that was also seemed to be one of the logical reasons why they kind of brought about the baseball theme.
Right. During that 1995 period, that was a time of great transition and change on that side of Main Street, USA. And like you said, the House of Magic went away, and some of the other shops that had gone away in that area, like the Penny Arcade, became the Hall of Champions. And actually, some of the seating area of Casey's Corner took over some of that back area that was once I believe, part of the Penny Arcade. But you're right, if you look into the Hall of Champions, especially where it connects to Casey's, it ties in with that baseball theme and onto other sports themes as well.
And interestingly enough, as kind of almost sort of an interesting little holdover from the Penny Arcade, there's a pinball machine in the back corner there.
Yeah, I'm going to try and see if I can find it. It's a great old, well, for many of us, old sort of pinball game, but it's not a traditional pinball game. It's actually a baseball game that's got the little metal ball that kind of goes, and your little player sort of lights up and kind of goes around the virtual field there. But, talking about that seating area, that goes with the whole theming. It is themed to this old-time, late 1800s American baseball park, and there are bleachers and a scoreboard and lots of authentic and some not so authentic, we'll get to that later, memorabilia. There's pennants, and of course the movie screen that shows a lot of the old Disney animated shorts with Mickey and Goofy, obviously focusing on sports.
And it's all, like you said, it's rooted very much in one particular item, and that is a poem. And many people are pretty much aware of the poem, and many people might not be, but the poem was called Casey at the Bat, and it was written by Ernest Thayer, and it was published or first released or whatever in the year 1888. And that is reflected if you walk out to the front sign at the front of the building on the Casey's Corner sign. There is a date of 1888 on the sign, and that reflects the him writing the poem.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of references to that poem and the subsequent film that we'll talk about later. But if you go into the seating area, you'll see a sign that has visitors for Mudville 2, and obviously Mudville from the poem itself was, there is no joy in Mudville when Casey struck out, and you'll see also Mudville pennants around the entire restaurant as well.
Yeah, that makes reference, like you said, Mudville is the team. The Mudville 9 is the team that's prominently featured in the poem. In fact, the first line of the poem is, "The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville 9 that day." And as you said, it goes through. You actually, I think, quoted the very last line of the poem, so we're kind of bridging we have the whole in between there, but that's where all those references come from.
Yeah, and just sort of a quick history. You've probably heard of Casey at the Bat. You might not know the poem or have seen the film. Basically, the Mudville 9 is losing by a couple of runs with a couple of outs at the bottom of the ninth, and they can win if they can get their mighty Casey up to bat. Two guys before him who are not expected to make it on base. That was Blake and Flynn, and when we talk about the Disney film, we'll talk about their characters specifically, because I really like the way they're portrayed in the Disney film. But the arrogant Casey is, of course, overconfident. He strikes out, ending the game and sending the Mudville home fans home very unhappy. And Jeff, maybe this is a good time to bridge between the 1888 poem and the 1946 Disney animated short.
Yeah, what's really neat is that Casey's Corner is a really, as you kind of been alluding to, is this really brilliant piece of Disney synergy when it came to the Imagineers doing this, because they had a natural connection with the poem, and they could have actually just kind of set up Casey's Corner without really any other connection beyond just the historical sense of the poem and such. But the neat thing is Casey at the Bat was adapted by Disney for an animated film, and that was a segment that was used in the 1946 movie Make My Music. Make My Music, Melody Time, they were what they called the package films, and they were sort of comprised of anywhere from 8 to 10 different kind of animated vignettes, and Casey and the Bat was one of them in that movie. And it was a straight adaptation of the poem, to where Jerry Colonna, who was a very famous voice actor, radio performer of the day, basically narrates the poem, and you see basically the story enacted. And as you were mentioning, Flynn and Blake, they're very, very well comically portrayed, because they get on base and they're taunting the pitcher, and Casey comes up swaggering, and Casey is this very over-exaggerated kind of character, small legs but huge, torso and chest, and he basically just taunts the pitcher. But the interesting thing is they're incorporated into Casey's Corner. If you walk in to the counter service or the counter area, you look up at the menu board, and on one side of the menu board is Casey, and on the other side is the pitcher for the visitors. And they are actually you could see the actual Disney incarnations of them there. And interestingly enough, it was very, very popular segment. And a number of years later, in 1954, they decided to release it separately as a standalone, just short. And in doing so, at the same time, they produced a sequel. And the sequel was called Casey Bats Again. And it basically just took inspiration from the original poem because there was no sequel ever written to the poem. And it was very much a contemporary kind of riff on it. And it was basically Casey gets married. He's had his failure. He's retired from baseball. He gets married, and much to his dismay, has 9 daughters and has no boys to kind of drive the baseball, spirit to. And the girls themselves become baseball players, and he coaches their team. And through that kind of comic kind of scenario, he gets some degree of redemption for what happened to him the first time.
Well, the interesting thing for me when I watched this again, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a video up in the show notes of both Casey Bats Again and the original Casey at the Bat, so you can kind of get a feel for it. And they're also available, like you said, as part of the Make My Music DVD, which we talked about in the past. Definitely suggest picking up. But Disney also puts their own spin on it, and there were a couple of points that I noticed that I just thought were interesting and funny. At the beginning, they don't necessarily read from the poem verbatim until you get sort of almost halfway through the poem, and the narrator talks about the leather-covered sphere hurtling through the air. But at the beginning, they talk about women, ladies just not understanding baseball. And there's another point where Casey, before he gets up to bat, we see him with 7 to 10 women sort of laying all over him, just sort of fawning all over Casey. Again, something noticeably absent from the poem itself.
Yeah, they kind of gave it a contemporary spin for that even being the post-World War II era.
And they definitely put a very much, obviously, a very Disney-like comical spin on it. And I remember the part with Flynn, his mustache being a very important part of not just how he gets up to bat, but how he hits the ball and how he eventually gets on base. And I just thought it was great, some of that early animation that so many people maybe just miss and don't really get a chance to appreciate. And Jeff, the other thing of note was you mentioned that Jerry Colonna was the narrator. He actually was pretty well known back in the 40s and 50s, and he was actually a sidekick with Bob Hope on some of his radio shows. And of course, kids are asking not only who Bob Hope is, but what the heck's a radio. And he also was the voice of the March Hare in the Alice in Wonderland film.
Yeah, he was a very, very popular personality, and that if you kind of go back and read some of the reviews of Make My Music, you'll always see Casey at the Bat kind of lauded as one of the high points of the film, and much of that is attributed to his just over the top, voice narration of it. He really plays it broad, and it's very, very funny and entertaining.
Yeah, but so back inside to the restaurant itself, because the seating area, again, you talk about that incredible theming, and I'm sure most people don't look around and wonder or make the association maybe to Casey at the Bat. We talked about the Republic Field sign and the Visitors Mudville score, but there's a lot of other great details there. There's a lot of other, like we said, authentic memorabilia, and there's one piece that you and I love that's not quite authentic, and if you look real close at one of the pictures on the wall, you'll see that the people in the picture are definitely not from that era.
Yeah, it's definitely a staged photograph, and we've done, we've asked around, we've kind of talked to people about it, and we've never ever been able to kind of dig up the specifics of who they were and what their association was, but we just make the assumption that they had something to do with the redesign there on Main Street. And it's a staged picture, and what's especially funny about it is if you examine it very, very closely, they're all basically have their, handlebar mustaches on, and one is, I think at least one is distinctly female, but with her handlebar mustache.
Yeah, and she's wearing, there's somebody with Velcro sneakers and a pair of Nikes or Air Jordans, which I don't think Casey was wearing in the late 1800s. And let me tell you something, I've gotten a lot of very weird looks taking pictures of odd stuff in Walt Disney World, but trying to get a good photo as I'm zooming in with my little point-and-shoot camera, trying to get the shoes and the faces of these people have definitely elicited some strange looks from the families that just want to kind of sit there and eat their hot dog.
And we could kind of clarify the context of the picture is that if you are in that particular area, that particular wall area is just covered with other vintage photographs of baseball players of that era. So you have to stop and kind of look very closely, and a lot of times it's something that you just happen to be sitting there, you just kind of can stumble upon. I've noted a lot of people that say that's exactly how they noticed it the first time, is they sort of did a double take and thought something doesn't look right, and when you kind of examine it a little more closely, you can see the details that we're talking about.
And the great thing about this area, especially for kids, is for them, this is like a dinner show, because they get to sit down. They've got their hot dogs kind of wrapped in the foil pocket, just like you would get at a real baseball game. They're sitting in the bleachers. They've got these animated shorts. It's a great sort of, little diversion for them as well.
Yeah, it's a great hidden treasure. I think you might have even mentioned that in the introduction, that it is one of these places where you can get, unless it's like one of the craziest like points of the day where it's lunchtime or whatever and it's a mob scene, for the most part you can go in there and it's generally low key. There's not typically a whole lot of people sitting on the bleachers, and it's nice, air conditioned, and it's a great 10, 15, 20 minute rest stop where you can really kind of relax and chill, and you've got entertainment, and it's just a great atmosphere.
Yeah, and take a look at the cast members. They have some of the best costumes. They're wearing these turn-of-the-century baseball uniforms. They've got the knickers. They've got everything. You'll see even in the area by the stand, as if you were really in a ballpark snack stand, there are newspapers on the walls and a lot of things to really give you that sense that you are in the 1800s. And if you sit outside, actually, you've got the benefit of the ragtime player on the piano as well.
And another very neat detail is just right at the entrance there, and those are the two wooden statues of the traditional baseball players.
Yeah, and he, again, talk about getting odd looks. I've taken pictures of that statue, from the front, from the back, trying to identify, what number it is, whose number that's supposed to be. Looks nothing like the Casey from the film, I could tell you that much.
There's absolutely, it's what, again, it plays to that whole, they kind of went for a very, very traditional look overall, and really only snuck the character from the cartoon up on the menu board.
Yeah, all right. So we might as well make this into a little mini review, because we're talking about the menu board. And like I said, Jeff, you want to talk about a place, not only get the very best hot dogs on property, but probably one of the better deals for a meal on property. This might be it, because they've got hot dogs, they've got corn dog nuggets, you can get chili on your hot dog, and of course everybody's favorite, the free condiments, including the ever popular cheese sauce.
Yeah, and I think it's a place that a lot of people bypass because they're sort of on their way to somewhere else, and it's very easy to kind of walk quickly by it, and because there's not this very large kind of seating area to draw you into it and say, oh, look at all the seating. You kind of have the outdoor patio seating and then the indoor bleachers. And I think a lot of people tend to bypass it when they should really stop and give it a chance.
Yeah, I agree. And it is sort of a little hidden gem, not just because, of course, of the food, but because of some of the great details. And if you're a baseball fan or a sports fan, or you like some of those old animated sports shorts, what you can see in the seating area inside. But it's great to kind of uncover some of these stories and some of these connections to not just Disney characters, Jeff, but some of these other characters that date back, literally hundreds of years.
And again, it just again, as we've always said, it shows you the links to which the Imagineers go to really make your experience an authentic one, and it really shows, especially in something as not necessarily high profile as an attraction, but a simple refreshment stand.
And that's the whole point. Even if you're in just a counter service location, or even if you're just getting a quick bite to eat or sitting down somewhere and relaxing, take the time and look around and explore a little bit and wonder and ask. And sometimes you might get a cast member that might be able to help you out. But hopefully segments like these will help introduce you to some of these little details, and like we call them, hidden treasures. Jeff Pepper, as always, a pleasure, my friend. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out.
That's all the time we have for this week's show. I want to say thanks for tuning in once again. Also, thanks to my special guests, Steve Trover from All-Star Vacation Homes. You can visit them by checking out the link in our show notes page this week or by visiting allstarvacationhomes.com. I also want to say a special thanks to a special person. That's Bert Weiss from Bert's Big Adventure. You can also find the link to his website there. That's bertsbigadventure.org. And thanks to Jeff Pepper for making me hungry for a hot dog. Thanks to our segment on Casey's Corner. You can catch the videos of Casey at the Bat and Casey Bats Again on this week's show notes page at WDWradio.com. Couple of quick reminder, if you head on over to DisneyWorldTrivia.com, you can check out the video teaser for the audio guide to Walt Disney World Main Street USA. I am working on the second CD in the series, Adventureland Now, and I will have a release date for that very soon. Remember that you can purchase the CD or instantly downloadable MP3 file from DisneyWorldTrivia.com. And next week, I will be in Walt Disney World, so if you'll be in the parks, hopefully I'll see you there. And if you see me running around with a mic, notebook, or, yes, even my laptop in hand, please come on over and say hi. And as you know by now, I hardly ever sleep, and if for some reason you want to follow what I'm doing from time to time, you can come and check out the DisneyWorldTrivia.com homepage, where you can find my instant updates from Twitter. Now, Twitter allows you to get some brief, instant sort of updates as I post them from my computer or phone. You can look for the module on the right-hand side of the page. I'll try and update it as often as possible, especially when I'm in Walt Disney World right from the parks next week. If you want to be on the air and have a segment suggestion, question, or comment, you can email me at lou@wdwradio.com. You can also call the voicemail at 206-202-4WDW. That's 206-202-4939. Also at WDWradio.com, you can find some other links to recommended products and services like Owner's Locker for your own personal secure storage locker delivered right to your resort. You can also find links to Orlando Fun Tickets for authorized and discounted official Disney tickets, as well as Mouse Fan Travel, my recommended travel provider specializing in Disney vacation destinations. Of course, you can also pick up your official WDWradio.com shirts right on the site as well. In the next few weeks, we're going to have more DSI, more trivia, some bests of the bests, fact or fiction, interviews, travel planning tips, and more. I'm also going to have some more live segments from the parks, so stay tuned for that. And of course, if you like the show, please post your feedback on the forums at DisneyWorldTrivia.com. You can find a link to there from the WDWRadio.com show notes. And please review the show on iTunes, but more importantly, please help spread the word and let others know about it. Have a great week. Thanks for tuning in again. Happy Mother's Day. See ya.
Lou, good afternoon. This is Jamie from Dunloring, Virginia. Just got finished listening to show number 65. Also wanted to chime in on the lack of Sully at the Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor Factory show. I think the reason he may not be there is due to the fur. I know that when Pixar did Monsters, Inc., they had to do some technological breakthroughs to get the fur to render accurately and naturally, and possibly the way that the Monsters, Inc. show works, that the real-time nature of it, they can't really get those the fur to look good on screen. Just an idea. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Hi, Lou. Caleb from Columbus, Indiana here, and my wife and I are here for a little 4-day trip to Walt Disney World. We just came to Disney Studios this morning, Saturday, May 10th, and went over to Toy Story Mania, and they are doing the annual pass holder previews this morning. However, we do not have annual passes, so we were going to look on the mercy of some folks to maybe let us in with them. However, it's a 2-hour wait right now just to get on the ride, so we decided we wouldn't bother with that right now. But it looks like they are letting people in. They do have the Pixar Place area blocked off for most guests, so you have to get in line just to be able to get behind the bushes. They have blocking the whole thing off, but there's quite a bit of activity going on back there. So just want to let you know. Thanks.
Hey, Lou. This is Mark Gerner from Evansville, Indiana. Really enjoy the Walt Disney World radio show, and as one of the entrants in the Dream CMO contest, I really appreciated your interview with Justin. I was amazed, though, by some of your comments about vacationing during peak season versus going during the off-season. We have gone in March and October, December, June, February. We will never again go during spring break or during the summer. For us, most of the time we go in September. We find there are lots of advantages to this, and some of those you mentioned, but others you didn't. There are shorter hours, but we literally walk onto most of the rides during the day, and we have seldom had to wait longer than half an hour for an attraction. And although the Magic Kingdom fireworks and their parades may skip a day or two between their performances, Phantasmic and Illuminations, or whatever they're calling it now, and all the parades in Animal Kingdom, Disney's Hollywood Studios, they all happen on a daily basis. I've never seen them skip a day, at least in September. Because the parks close sooner, we actually have more of our evenings to relax, and our nights we actually sleep. So amazingly, we enjoy our vacation, and we're actually refreshed by the end. The times we went during peak seasons, we had to take a vacation from our vacation to catch up on our sleep. It was absolutely miserable. One last benefit to going in September is that for the past few years, Disney's offered their Magic Your Way dining plan for free. So not only do we get lower rates for our resorts, but we saved a couple of $100 on foods, and that's a huge expense when you're going for 2 weeks. Finally, and maybe this is workable for some of your regulars, if you do go on an annual basis and you stay an extended amount of time, you might do what we do. We purchase our annual pass, and for the front end of that pass, we go to Disney World the last 2 weeks of September. Following year, we go the first 2 weeks of September, and still on the annual pass. With the Disney free dining, we end up only paying for our lodging and transportation on that second year. Well, okay, we have to buy a one-day ticket to get the free dining, but hey, it's good anyhow. Anyhow, keep up the great work, and enjoy a Dole Whip float for me. Thanks. God bless.